Hi again. So, talking of how I cope, I think you first need to know a little bit more about me as a person. As a kid, I always wanted to work with people, helping people, doing things for people. And as I grew up, I realised I wanted to work in the field of psychiatry and I wanted to be a psychiatrist. That was my ambition. That or going in the Royal Air Force, where I might have been encouraged to pursue something down those lines. But I didn't do it. I got married young and we had our children when I was young. What I did do was a university course and a personal secretarial course. And then later on, I did a diploma in psychology and I got that. So that was the closest I ever got to becoming a psychiatrist. It was very little. Voluntary work wise, I used to go, it started off once a fortnight doing Samaritan work. Once a fortnight and one sort of shift, 4-hour shift, and then one overnighter every month. I increased it. I did just by an overnighter, by a second overnighter a month as time went on. My kids didn't need me that much. And the worst part of it was coming home on the train early morning. I loathed it because there was nobody about except sometimes, you would see people they'd been on the tiles all night or in nightclubs, and I felt very unsafe. I used to sometimes pop into McDonald's and just have a coffee and something to eat there before catching the train, so it was little bit later. Anyway, I did Samaritans and I did that for a few years. I worked with, this is whilst I was working also, because the kids were grown in their teens. I also helped out with a group that was funded. We had a coach funded by the Variety Club of Great Britain, and we used to go in this coach, small van, to pick kids up from their homes and bring them back to a play centre where they would spend most of the morning, have something to eat before we took them back home. And often we would pick them up, the kids were barely dressed, or I remember one little girl and her shoes were so small for her. Her feet were literally bunched up like that in her shoes, folded over almost, couldn't get the straps done up. And her mother came to the door and she was, a big sort of blousy woman with her hair in curlers and a cigarette. I mean, I can't say it any other way because that's how she was. And she's ready to go. She had a coat on, she had her shoes on, such as they were. She was ready to go. So I said, well, you'll be here when we bring her back about such and such a time. So to give her credit, she was there when we brought her back. But in the meantime, we took the little girl back. We found her some clothes, found her some shoes that fitted, and fitted better. And she had something to eat, was taken back, and we picked her up the following morning. Same thing again. It wasn't every day. I did sort of 2 mornings a week, max. but those were the children that we were trying to help. And then there were people who tried to reach out to the parents, who tried to help them and show them what they could do to be better parents, what really was expected of them by their children as the children's caretakers. So that's what we did. I suppose it was outreach in a way. So I did that as well for a couple of years max. And I'd sort of had my fill of despair, of coming up against ignorance and people not wanting to do better for their kids or do better for themselves. I carried on, as I say, with the Samaritan work for a bit longer. I worked in a women's hostel where there would be women who were abused and victims of domestic violence who would come in with horrific stories, absolutely horrific. And the sad thing was, a lot of them would go back to that same situation. So many of us would get disheartened by that. And by the fact also that the women would often, I'd say 5 or 6 times out of 10, give their abuser the address of where they were, or give somebody who was still in contact with them the address of where they were. So we would have men banging on the door demanding to see their wife or their girlfriend, which obviously made the other women very, very nervous. So we sort of had to put a stop on people coming back for a second or third or fourth time and refer them on to a different place where they didn't have the address until they got there. And certainly if the men came to our place, we could honestly say that no, the women weren't there. But it was, at the same time as it was fulfilling work, it was also challenging and at times disheartening work. So that's as far as I went in regards to helping people. I've never done it. I've never reached out or done anything else in that way. Often people will ask me questions and say, could you help me out with this? Could you give me your opinion on that? And that's all I can ever do, is give an opinion. And my opinion might not be the correct answer that they're looking for. I can't give answers. I could never, in any situation I worked in, give answers. I could give guidance, and I could say, well, you've got this option or you've got this option, and they would have to weigh it up for themselves, because none of us can live anybody's life for them. They have to live their own life. They have to make and own their own mistakes in that life. And I believe that it's only via mistakes that we grow, if you like. And we grow into the person that we are eventually meant to be. Which brings me on to the person that I now am. I would hesitate to work in any situation like I was involved in before, because if I was asked for advice, I would say what I've said, that nobody can really give advice, you've got to make your own decisions. But also, my beliefs are such that I have a profound faith, a deep feeling of what there is, that there is better for us, that there is a better life for us, that there is no hellfire, that when we meet our maker, yeah, we have to own our mistakes. We have to say what we've learned from those mistakes. And we travel on. We travel on. We don't travel on dogged by what's gone before. We don't travel on into a furnace that is going to burn us for eternity. That's not what I believe. I don't believe that God, that any loving father would commit his children to the flames or, damnation. I don't believe that. I've never believed it. So me now, I would stand firm on what I believe, and so anything I do say is probably coloured by my beliefs, probably coloured quite deeply by what I believe. So that's just a little bit about me that maybe you didn't know. That's maybe helpful in you getting to know me. And I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. I'll be back later on. Bye-bye.